Hey guys.
How you doing, everybody?
So today we're actually going to be looking at another lightweight mouse, the Mira-S by HK Gaming.
HK Gaming are a company out of Hong Kong. We've been excited to get our hands on this mouse, so we're looking forward to seeing what this is all about.
Right, well, let's have a look, shall we? So taking a look at the packaging, I do quite like the way they've gone for this very simple red and white theme with a basic image of the mouse on the front. I think it looks quite nice.
So we got a simple front to the box, clearly listed the weight of the mouse coming in at 61 grams. If we swivel it around and take a look at the left side, we have some technical specifications here, including the dimensions as well as the sensor. And then further at the back, we actually have a longer list, and it mentions the important things that people would want to know about the mouse. If we just lift the top of the box off. Okay, so first look in the box, we can see that the mouse has been protected here with a plastic covering.
It's like a little dust guard, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. It's going to keep the mouse in good condition when you first open it. We can see we have the cable wrapped up in a figure 8. And we have another one of these really nice rubber cable ties. I'm a big fan of these. They're really good. We can also see in the box that the cable has not been overly bent. It's not taut in any way. So hopefully that should protect the cable from any problems. One more thing to note. In the top of the box, we actually have a foam protective layer. And you can see that it correlates with where the wire is.
So it holds it in place, saves it falling out and rattling around inside.
Yeah, pushes it down, keeps it well protected again. So more good thinking by HK there. So if we take a look at the bottom of the box here, we can see they've included a few extras.
Nice.
We have an instruction manual as well as some specifications in there.
Okay.
Now this is nice to see. We've got some grip tape.
And they've provided some spare feet as well. Let's pop all that to one side. Now the box claims this is 61 grams without the cable.
So yeah, I mean we're getting 61, 62 grams and that's with the cable not touching the scale at all. If I release my hand and allow the cable to just rest on the scale, it goes up to 65, but you can pretty much expect that.
Definitely in the ultralight category then, below 70 grams.
Once again, we have a lineup of the usual suspects.
We've gathered a few similar mice together that are all small symmetrical ultralights.
And in the middle, we have the star of the show.
So first impressions, let's have a look at the overall shape.
When I first heard that it was released, I heard that this is basically a G Pro wireless shape.
Because that's a very popular shape, to be fair, isn't it?
A very popular mouse, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never tried this shape before, so this is going to be new for me. And of course, one of the things that, to be honest, always held me back from getting a G Pro wireless was the dimensions.
As you can see, it is tiny. I mean, at 114 in length, it is very small. And it's probably one of the smallest ones in this lineup here. The rest of the dimensions are quite standard. So it's about 60 in width and 40 in height.
We've got small hands, so we like small mice, but a lot of people, even with medium hands, are going to like really small mice as well. Because when they're gripping it, it gives them more space at the back here. So it gives them more room for maneuverability if they want to make micro adjustments, or even if they want to make movements with the wrist as well.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, it's a G Pro wireless shape, so that already says quite a lot about the shape of the mouse.
This is a symmetrical mouse. It's not ambidextrous because it's only got the buttons on the one side, so it's no good for left-handed people.
If we take a look at the side buttons here, I'll just bring them up to the camera. We can see that they are well positioned, so they're not going to get in the way of the thumb placement here.
Mm-hmm.
They're fairly small, I would say.
Yeah.
They're also rounded here.
They're rounded, but they're not too protruding, in my opinion.
Agreed. Like, I generally tend to prefer flat side buttons, but as long as they're not badly shaped and they're still comfortable to press down, then I don't have too much of an issue there. I think these are quite good. You'll also notice there's a recess between the two buttons here, and that's to aid when you're playing so that you don't have to think about which is the front and which is the back button. And that's really good because you do find on some mice where they don't have that split. You know, it can cause some issues for some people, so that's good thinking right there. HK have included software support with this mouse, which is something that I always like to see. It's a pretty simple interface, but it can definitely do everything that you need it to do. Since this mouse comes with a top sensor and it comes with the 3360, you'll find a lot of configuration available for your DPI settings.
So on this mouse, the DPI button is on the top. We have the most common steps, the 400 and the 800, which is good for FPS, but it does go all the way up to 10,000 DPI. Now the scroll wheel on this, it's got a rubberized center with a subtle texture on it, and it is segmented. You can feel those defined steps, but it's also quite soft. Now it's not, I wouldn't say it's as bad as the Ultralight 2. I found that one way too soft of a scroll, but it's not as clear and defined as, let's say, the MM711 or the Xtrify M4.
I'll completely agree with that. There's also a little bit of a gap here between the DPI and the scroll wheel, which is good to see, so you shouldn't be catching the DPI button.
That DPI button's also pretty flat, so I don't think you're going to accidentally press that at all.
Yeah, agreed, yeah. Spinning the mouse around, we can have a look at the underside, and we'll notice here that we have 4 small feet. There doesn't appear to be a film covering over the feet either, so there won't be any need to remove that out of the box.
They're actually virgin PTFE, so 100% PTFE.
Now, you know my preferences. I prefer large feet on mice, so there's a good chance that I'll be sanding down the bottom of this mouse and replacing these feet with something larger. One thing that I'd really like to see more mouse companies doing, which is giving people the option to use large or small. We've seen Glorious do it when they released their mouse with the small feet, and then you could add the extra ones to make them large.
That's a really good idea because then it fits all people's preference types. Now, if we have a closer look at the stress relief coming off the mouse, it doesn't appear to be angled in any way. So you do see some mice where they've actually angled it upwards slightly to take it off the ground. But it appears, as you can see, to not actually rest on the ground immediately out of the mouse either, which is good. Now, it's quite a tight weave for a shoelace cable. It is quite tight. It's comparable to the Viper Mini, I would say.
I'd say that as well, yeah.
It's not super soft either. I mean, it's tough feeling material. It's hard to explain, really.
It's one of those cables, it probably could be a little bit more flexible, but at the same time, if you throw it in a bungee, I doubt you're going to have any problems with it. So if I hold the cable fairly close to the mouse and I push it, you can see that it's flexible here. If I push from straight on, it will push the mouse back a bit, but it's definitely a flexible cable, as you can see here.
Now, a good thing as well is it's a nice long cable. It's about 1.8 meters, so you'll have no issues routing this around the back of your computer if that's what you want. Now, a lot of mouse companies are starting to do this to make it lightweight and to lose that excess weight. They are just giving that honeycomb shape, but I think it looks quite stylish. I personally really like it.
Yeah, that's definitely one of taste.
And as you can see, they've only gone 3 rows deep with the honeycomb, so it shouldn't impede on your fingers when you're placing them. But they have done the entire length of the side, but they're much smaller than the back ones, so hopefully that should feel quite comfortable when you're using that long term.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look at the shell that was on the MM711, for example, those holes were quite big.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that a lot of people did mention. I personally found where the honeycomb on the right side, where I had to put my pinky, that was a little bit of a problem. Like my finger would
almost
catch
slip
on it.
into it, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So I ended up using some grip tape on that part to solve that issue. As we mentioned, in the box they did include the grip tapes, so
if it's not something you like, you can cover those holes up and make it smoother.
exactly. But I think they've done these a good size and they shouldn't really be a problem for most people. Now, regarding the feel of the plastic, I have to say I really like this.
It's definitely good quality plastic, isn't it? You can feel that. And now we're going to just do a little quality and click test. So let's have a look. The main L&R clicks. The middle button and scroll. The DPI button. And the side buttons. So as you can see, I don't know how well the camera will pick it up, but it is very little pre-travel and not very much post-travel at all, so it doesn't feel mushy in any way either. And we'll just do a little creak test to check out the quality of this plastic. Good news is there's no side actuation, and it was a tiny bit of creaking, but it was very, very minimal. Barely pick it up at all. As you can see, it doesn't really have any rattle to it. I couldn't hear anything then, so if the mic did pick it up, it was most likely the cable. Now, as you'd expect with these being split buttons, there is a little bit of side wobble on these buttons, but again, not really an issue while you're gaming. So all in all, I'm quite impressed with this. It's very sturdy and it feels nice in the hand as well. So to give this mouse a good test, we've given it a couple of weeks worth of use before issuing this video. As you can see, we're playing it on a variety of different types of FPS games. We've tested it out on a lot of different mouse pads, but as you'd expect, the 3360 works just fine on all of them, so we don't need to go into too much detail about that.
All in all, I've found this mouse to be a pleasure to use. There's nothing that stands out as offensive about this mouse. It has a really good and safe shape.
It's a very small mouse, so it fits well for lots of different people's preferences. You know, if you've got medium or large hands, but like a very tight claw, it'll fit for that. It's also very well aimed at fingertippers. But I personally like to use like a hybrid claw/palm grip. And again, being a small hand, there just aren't many mice out there that fit that, because sometimes the hump will be too large, like with the MM711, for example. But this is a perfect balance that allows me to do that.
I agree completely. And another thing I'd like to mention, this is one of the very few mice that I feel like I can actually adjust my grip on the fly if I want to. So just to give an example, sometimes if I'm playing a game where I'm running around with an SMG or an assault rifle, I'll often pull the mouse further into the palm in more of a claw grip. But then if I pick up a sniper or I switch to sniper class, I'll often loosen my grip and actually it will become more of a fingertip grip. This is easier for me if I want to make micro adjustments and readjust my aim after I'm already aiming down the sight. So being able to adjust the grip in that way, it's been difficult to find mice that actually have given me the maneuverability to be able to do that. This mouse succeeds in that way. One other thing I'd like to mention that I think HK have done well with on this mouse, they haven't made it too thin. There have been a few mice recently, and I'd include the Ultralight 2 and probably the Viper Mini in this category, where they've had a nice length, but they've been just a little bit too thin on the grip width. This mouse is a good width, so I haven't personally had any issues with that.
But it's not just about the comfort of it, but I do think that if you have got a mouse that fits you perfectly, you can play it for hours on end without getting strained in the long run. You're always going to be a bit more relaxed in your muscles and therefore going to be aiming a little bit better as a result as well.
And it's great that they also included grips as well, if you don't particularly like the feel of the honeycomb shell. The feet that came with it as well were pure PTFE and extremely smooth on the glide. One thing I've found personally, I enjoy using those types of feet on, let's say, medium speed pads like the GSRSE, sort of cloth pads. On Cordura pads, I found them too fast. There's really nothing to speak of in terms of build quality defects. This is definitely a sturdy little mouse. I would say with the clicks, I like them very much. There's a very small amount of pre-travel and not very much post-travel, so they feel clicky and responsive. Now, hopefully this mouse isn't going to suffer from anything like double clicking issues. However, this mouse has been assembled using the Omron 50 millions, and they have had problems with double clicking in other mice. And as I mentioned earlier, the side buttons also feel crispy, and they don't feel uncomfortable in any way. Interestingly, and this is an important note, for some reason HK decided to ship this mouse with pointer precision enabled, so you're going to want to make sure you disable that.
Now in terms of price, they're actually going for about 50 quid now, which is quite a reasonable competitive price. But for some of the more fancy colours like the lavender and the metallic blue, they are coming in a little bit higher at like 60 and 65.
There are links in the description below if you're interested in purchasing this mouse. Is this a mouse that we could recommend for anyone looking for a small ultralight mouse? The answer is a definite yes.
Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review.
If you have any questions, leave a comment in the section below.
And if you do want to check us out while we're streaming, we're on most nights playing FPS games, and links to our Twitch channel can be found in the description. Hope to see you again soon.